Good evening. Welcome, everybody, to Pitch Stripes After Dark. I am Uncle Tats. I want to thank everybody that's hanging out with us this evening. And we are going to get into it right away. And one of the things we talked about earlier in this morning show, if you missed it, was part of the awards on Raw's behalf was the issue with Jarren Duran and the heckling and the kind of verbal abuse from the fan, which was completely unnecessary. And it led me to really want to spark this conversation even before the show. The guys weren't aware of it at the time, but when it comes to mocking somebody's mental illness and their struggles in life, that's where fans go too far, and there's a lot of examples of it. I remember, I'm sure a lot of you do as well. Like a guy like you, a guy that really stood out was a guy like Josh Hamilton. And his mental struggles and his struggles in life were mocked and kind of used as a weapon from opposing fans and fans from his own team. And it really gets to the point where you have to sit back and realize these people are only human and that they have the same struggles that everybody else does, even if they really just don't, they don't live to your standard. They're trying to live to their own standards and really fighting for what they really want. Yeah, Jacob, IKF was another example. There's been a few, and it was something that was on my mind even before the whole thing with Duran, because especially when you're playing in New York, we always talk about the pressure, the weight of the pinstripes, and things like that. And it's one of these where you really have to remember that they go home at night, they go home to their families, and anybody that struggles, this is not what they said. That's not why they left the house. They didn't leave the house to fail. They left the house to do their job, and sometimes the job is just not. It's not the results that they were hoping for. I don't think there's anybody in this chat or anybody that watches this channel is going, you know what? I think I'm going to fail today. I think I'm just going to lay down and just lay an egg, and I'm just gonna take my lumps. Nobody's leaving the house to do that. So when it comes to mental health, it's something I take very seriously. And I'm glad, and I'm sure we all are, that guys like Duran and IKF and Hamilton have been able. Hamilton's is another prominent name that I always think of when this topic comes up. But it's slow down, take a breath, and realize that Joey Gallo's another one. Good call, Sunil. These people are just trying to do a job, and it takes, and if you have time and you want to jump in, feel free. Because this is something I do take seriously, and it really warrants a conversation. So I really hope that when it comes to it, and I will say this, if you are somebody that is dealing with mental illness or know somebody that's dealing with mental illness, reach out, ask for help. It's there. There are a lot of avenues, whether you talk to a friend, family, a stranger. There are multiple roads you can go through and really seek the help that you need and you deserve. Everybody deserves to have another day and to have another chance to make the best of their lives. And it's never too late to turn yourself around and really gain your confidence to be your best self. So it's something I'm not shy about talking about. The biggest problem is sometimes finding the right words so you don't make you don't want to say the wrong thing and make a situation worse for somebody. but at the same time, as long as you're sparking a conversation, then there's no harm, no foul type of attitude. So there's that. But yeah, the whole thing also with Williams is kind of what really had me thinking about this all over again. Because here is somebody that's just trying to, he went from the NL to the AL, and the AL East, despite of what you think about how the rosters and how the division is going to go, on the baseball aspect of it, they're still trying to do a job. And he's coming in with a lot of pressure. Anybody that's come into that closing role after Mariano, we're never happy with the result. And we're waiting to feast on them and to criticize them and bring them down. What a bum, F this guy. This isn't what we traded for. It just might not be his place. We've seen it. Like, Sunil said, Gallo, he was the guy we were all clamoring for. We all wanted to see him get into this and get into the Bronx and be a Yankee. And when it didn't work out, we tore him down. Sometimes we do the same thing with, guys like Volpe, because he may not have been the guy on the top of everybody's list. And in his third year, he's kind of struggled a little bit. We just want to bring these people down and really, we always have to have that villain. We've had fun with the Aaron Hicks Award on the morning shows, but Aaron Hicks is another one. He was just a ball player that wasn't built for New York. So I think there is a very fine line that cannot be crossed when it comes to criticizing the in-play attributes of a player to the person themselves, is how I'm trying to put it. It's really a problem because fans feel like because of the salaries they make, they're immune to feelings. And it's something that really can't stand. One thing I can stand is all these people in the chat. I do appreciate you all hanging out with me tonight. If you haven't already and you want to join the discussion, it's very easy. It's very free. Hit that subscribe button. But I do want to get to a couple of these comments. Again, Sunil's pointing out people who've had obesity issues and other physical issues get typically and oftentimes fall into this. With self-motivation, they can take these steps to right their own well-being physically and mentally. And it's a deeper dive when it goes into stuff like that. But to join me in this conversation right now, somebody who takes it just as seriously as I do, want to bring with me NFE from the Strike Zone. Let's get that shared screen going the right way. There we go. We have too many buttons on this.
I know, man. I know.
Yeah,
it's been a minute since I jumped down.
I appreciate you coming on for however you want. You want to hang out for the whole show. You just want to throw in a couple minutes. I know the time is late for a lot of people, but I do appreciate you jumping in to discuss things like this.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, man. Mental health, honestly, Tats, I don't know how much you covered, but it's a serious thing. It's like a lot of folks go through it. It's not just us average folks. I mean, players, athletes, right? They go through it, and particularly with men, they have a hard time even, they have a struggle with talking about it because it's like kind of taboo, you know what I'm saying? But there's more and more players coming out now, kind of just coming out admitting to it, which is probably a good thing, I would say, just because of the fact that, I think more men need to come out and say how what they're feeling and how they're feeling and what they're going through, because it's, they bottle everything up. And when they bottle everything up, then, it pretty much shit hits the fan, right? So,
yeah.
So to speak. But, what are you going to do? But yeah, more and more players need to come out. That whole thing with Jarren Duran, I mean,
it really was a shame he had to go through that.
Yeah, it's just, the way I see it is, fans are going to. It's one thing with fans booing. I mean, that's. I feel like that's
That's part
normal.
of the gig.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? You're getting paid millions of dollars. You're gonna get booed. If you're gonna get booed, you're gonna get booed, man. It's like go out there and play better. But once it gets a little too far though with the verbal stuff, and especially if when you start mentioning stuff about their families, or if it's like race related or color related, then it's like, okay, well, there's really no point in going there. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. It sucks that players have to go through that. I mean, they're human like we are. They're just on a different level when it comes to their lives. But for average folks like us, man, it's like, yeah, mental health, man. It takes a toll on a lot of people, and people will self harm. And it's I always say to folks, you know, reach out, man. Reach out. Like feel free to reach out anytime, or utilize your resources. There's plenty of resources out there for people to reach out. There's plenty of services out there for people to reach out. I know it's just difficult for them to make that call, but that's half the battle right there. Is just 50% of it is just making that call and being like, you know what, I got to do this. And once you make that call, man, it just makes things so much more simpler. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, and to Ken, one, we always thank you for your service, and we don't take your service for granted. But yeah, as a guy with a lot of military in his family, yeah, the military, the PTSD on the military level, is something that, yeah, it's definitely something that's also, I think society is starting not to really take it as seriously, because now, for every little thing they always say we have PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to remember that really, for the soldiers level, needs to still warrant, and hold a lot of weight, because what they've seen way more than we can. And they, a lot of them, are, I think at this age, I don't know, remember Ken's exact age. I don't think he was around for the draft in Vietnam, but a lot of people sign up for that. They're volunteering and they're taking that risk.
Mm-hmm.
And we do thank everybody that does go through that and volunteers for that. It is not easy. And look, I've been I've been in Jaron Duran's shoes, as far as having to that level of that mental risk of being in that spot where you don't know what tomorrow's going to be, if you're not even going to be here. And and that's also what kind of struck me. I've had to go and get the treatment that I needed, and had the strength to make the call and get help, rather than just wallow. And here I am, hopefully entertaining you all. Obviously today it's not coming off as more of an entertaining, fun show just yet. We do have things for later on to kind of lighten the mood, but it's never too late, to really look for help and just say, you know what, I can't do it by myself anymore. So don't be ashamed to ask for help.
100%. No, I like you said, man, you went through your struggles. I've been through my struggles as well. It's not like I tell the whole world about it, but I've been through my personal struggles as well. And yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough, but usually, like I said, you just got to make a call. If it's a friend or like some sort of professional that works in that field, don't hesitate. I mean, there are people out there that will, they'll listen and hear you out. They'll take the time with you and listen to you, and hopefully provide, try to uplift your spirits and whatnot. So, yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough to go through. It's not easy. Some people go through it, for some folks it's temporary. For some folks it's days. Some folks it's months. It's years. some people go through this their whole lives, man. So, yeah, I've definitely have met a lot of people, at least in my life, that went through like a bunch of stuff in their lives. I mean, whether it was some sort of like addiction that they went through or something that they traumatically experienced, whatever the case was, man. But folks come out on the other side. And I mean, for anybody that's gone through anything, it's just like, more power. I applaud you for, powering through it and making it through. Cause yeah, a lot of times, people can't take it, and, they, unfortunately their lives are at risk at that point. It's like at any given moment, you just don't know if they're going to be here. It's just
it's a sad reality. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And to kind of, go from one extreme to another. As far as with fans with Durant and some of the others, but you also see, because it does say, the title is when fans go too far. You also, I think I saw somewhere on X today that, it's the anniversary of the game where they, in Boston, when they threw the ball back and almost, it almost hit Stanton in the head. And it's, you could say he was just throwing it back and the guy just had a good arm. Well, then there was the, also the story they were aiming for him because, he was doing damage against this, the team. Sometimes fans do have a habit of overreacting to a game. And, it's be a fan, but don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Fighting in the stands amongst fan bases. Like sometimes fans just take their fandom to the next level.
Yeah.
And I want to say more times than not, I don't want to put a percentage on it because I don't have the numbers in front of me and I don't want to oversell or undersell. But if you're going to a game at an opposing ballpark, one, be careful of your alcohol intake. Be careful of your trash talk. Some trash talk is very much welcome. I remember last year with a bunch of friends of mine, we all went to Orioles. We went to the Orioles game when they were playing the Yankees, and we were having a lot of fun with the trash talk. Even before the game, I was hanging out, on before the game started, interacting with a lot of Orioles fans, and it was great. It was a great experience. And they're very welcoming people. But when the game started, they were brutal. They held nothing back. And then after the game, it was like, all right, I hope everybody gets home safe. It was a very weird, you don't see that in New York a lot. But it was one of those, yep, yeah, Jonathan was there with us. You see, he knows I am not lying. That's how you fan. Have fun, talk your shit, wish everybody well at the end. And everybody goes on their way. No parking lot brawls, no fighting in the stands, because that's where you ruin the experience for everybody.
Well, the fighting in the stands cracks me up all the time because it's almost like I want to tell these fans, you think these players care about you all fighting? You think they give a damn? Like they're freaking laughing at all of you while they're making their money, and that money's going to the bank. And I was like, you all are spending the money. Just remember, you all are spending the money. But now fans, I do think that fans do take it way too far. And for me, because I get this. I kind of heard it from a few people. They're just like, how can you be so calm when the Yankees are losing when you're calling these games? I'm like, I have no financial connection with the Yankees. I don't work for the Yankees. I don't work for the Yes Network or nothing like that. I was like,
our responsibility is to our listeners,
our
viewers,
right?
They have the most positive experience. So they walk away going, despite the loss, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I get upset. Sure, I'm not. It's disappointing. I do get disappointed when they play the way they play. Sometimes it's frustrating at times. And yeah, Dev, some fans are stupid. They really are, man. It's just a damn. It should be just a damn game for us fans. I mean, we should just go there. I mean, I mean, we spend the money, we buy the merchandise or whatever, like, but to go to us, and you're also risking yourself of getting banned from the stadium for life.
Yup.
So is it worth it? I mean, that's the question. So
yeah, it's and I know it's all in fun, but it's like you'll have a hothead, somebody that's not sure. Like I know he's just having fun trolling.
yeah,
He's been in our chat before, and we have fun with it.
sure.
But if somebody is new and doesn't understand that, y'all some lames, it's just trying to have a little fun and bring a little light, with some of the criticisms. Sometimes it's a little overboard, but we all know that, all right, sometimes you just don't miss the mark on your joke. And it's like, all right, like I wouldn't have used those exact words. Those are the ones that want to throw down. And it's like, just let it go. Enjoy the joke, move forward, enjoy the show, enjoy the game wherever you are, and just do what do your thing. You don't have to be a hothead, or you don't have to prove your toughness by raising your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Just look, all right, say what you got to say. You move on. You watch the next pitch, watch the next swing of the bat, and just keep going.
No, I mean you're on point, man. But no, I've been in games where fans, they get belligerently drunk, and then they start fighting. They start fighting in the stands, and it's just like they start yelling at each other, and just being just absolutely obnoxious, man. It's just like I don't get why. I'm like it's a game, guys. Like, we're passionate about our teams. We love our teams, but once again, it's just I have no like I tell people all the time, I have no financial connection with the New York Yankees. Like, there's really no point in me being upset. Like, the only people that should be upset is the Yankees players themselves when they win or when they lose or when they're playing bad, and front office people, man. Like, yeah, they and the managers and the coaches. Those are the guys that should be getting mad and getting each other's faces when they if they suck.
Well, like you said earlier, it's not like Williams is going out and doing this intentionally.
No,
Rob. We were talking about it this morning with Rob and Donald. He's also playing for a contract.
Mm-hmm.
You think this was his plan? No. You'd have to be an idiot. You know what? I don't really want to make too much money. Let me have an off year. Like, who's going into a season like that? I mean, it's stupid.
Yeah, I know. A player going into a contract year and is just like, you know what? I don't want to make money for.
I'm gonna wing it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wing it. It's just kind of like Carlos Rodon. He has his struggles. It's like, what do you all think that Carlos Rodon wants to give up homers? You think he wakes up the morning he pitches and is like, you know what? I feel like giving up a home run today. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, just because.
And you talk about a player that do I think he was the sole reason for the facial hair change? No. I think this was long into conversation before he even got here.
Yeah.
So, but that's what everybody's gravitating to. No, make him shave. Nobody's what are they gonna do? Tie him down? Unless the organization actually comes out and retracts the amendment to the facial hair policy, it is what it is. And Rodon's better with the beard.
I mean, he has been better.
We've all made the joke with the beard power. Some players have not rejected it, but opted to stay to the old tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Judge, he could easily have a really crisp, clean beard. He's still got the clean shave. But I think it goes too far when all we want to do is we want to find that player every year. And that's going to be our scapegoat where they'll never do anything we're happy with. If they have a good game, it was like, oh, well, where was he yesterday? Well, let's see what he does tomorrow. Fans are very hard to freaking satisfy, especially in the Yankees the Yankee universe.
Yeah, it's like if the team wins, particularly with the Yankees, if the Yankees win, greatest team on the planet.
Yeah, when they lose, they suck.
When they lose, they suck. Let's just fire everybody and trade everybody. You know what I mean? Like that's usually the mentality. But yeah, it's just if it was easy, go out there and play. Go and do it. You know what I mean? It's not an easy game to play. Again, there's some guys like I was talking with somebody. I talked about Aaron Boone. I'm like, I don't want his job. Yeah, he's getting paid, but I don't want his job, dude. That is a stressful job. I mean, being a baseball manager is a stressful job, especially.
I don't even want the bat boy's job. That let him handle that responsibility. My luck, I'll chip over the bat, and so will the player.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather be like have a low stressful job if I'm part of a team. There's some jobs on the Yankees I wouldn't want that, and players I can only imagine what kind of pressure they go to or go through. I mean, they're getting paid a lot of money, but again, once again, being playing the game is not easy because you got to live up to the hype, you got to live up to those expectations, and but it's definitely not easy. So
yeah, and Brad, I lose concentration over anything. Anything.
Oh my God.
And don't think I didn't see that fucking comment about the hair earlier. But before we switch topics, because it's something I think you'll enjoy talking about, and I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. But I was going to give a shout out.
I was gonna say it's been a while, man, since I jumped on with you, so it's been a hot minute. So I feel like
it was just one of those topics tonight where it was, let's get you back into the mix at night with me. But do want to shout out Nick Daniels. Good to see you with us in the chat. We got Sunil. We got Brad. We also have with us Yasum Lames. We got Jonathan as always. I mean, if we think we don't sleep, Jonathan gets less sleep than we do, because he's on every chat and every channel at any time. Jonathan is the GOAT. We got Dev hanging out with us. We got Ken with us as well. Salute to you. And then, we had you in there earlier with Jacob Petruzzi. Jacob, always good to see you in the chat. But, yeah, I sleep. Yeah, when? I call bullshit on that. We had the NFL draft. And the Giants picked, with their third round pick. His name completely just slipped my mind right now. The defensive lineman that wanted 56.
Oh man,
you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Everybody does. If his name comes to mind, drop it in the chat. And it had me think. When does it really when do you warrant unretiring a number for somebody? And I heard somebody say, "Oh, Abdul Carter." Thanks, Sunil.
Oh, okay. He was the first round pick. Yeah,
the third pick.
Yeah, third pick. Okay.
And I was going. I know. I said third round. I knew what I meant. Go ahead, Brad. I can hear you typing now. But it, I heard a comment. They're like, "Well, a Yankee would never do that." Yes, they have, because we saw Yogi Berra let his number be unretired for Elson Howard. So it had me continue to think. Remember when who was it? Wanted They wanted a number unretired. Yeah, no, glad you did. Yeah, I knew I was going to lose my concentration. It's after midnight. But Clint Frazier was joking around that he wanted number 7, and and he ended up taking 77.
Mm-hmm.
But when do you get to that point where you know what? This may be a player where do you unretire a number? Because Tiki always had the argument, and his thing was he goes, I rented the number. And somebody else wanted it. It's not my decision, it's the organization's. When does it get to that point where it's like, no, I think there should be a criteria. If the player is still around to option that number, it should be a conversation between the players and maybe, somebody from the organization to say, yes, they actually did talk about it. And, they're going to allow his number to be unretired for said player. Once the player's passed on, that number that you can't unretire it.
I mean, man, when it comes to, you're not going to be able to retire every number. That's just it. You're not going to be able to retire every number. There's certain numbers, with the Yankees that are retired. I think those numbers should stay retired. But at this point, though, I don't think the Yankees should retire any more numbers. The only person that I would say, hey, you could probably retire their number is probably Judge. You could say you could, you could say you couldn't, he should get his number retired because the guy has just been a phenomenal athlete. You know what I mean? But he's the only guy that I can think of. Jonathan says CC. I mean, sure, you could say CC. But what up, Sean? But I don't. Yeah, at some point, I mean, what you're gonna go to like 4-digit numbers, triple-digit numbers.
Yeah, like Sunil says, 3-digit jersey
Yeah,
numbers.
it seems kind of unrealistic. So.
But Jonathan also making a point. He's like, I would make the argument some numbers shouldn't have been retired, but not unretire a number. Because it almost seems like we had those couple of years where they were retiring every player on the 98 team. And as much as they're near and dear to us for the memories that they gave us to solidify our fandom, even though, most of the time our fandom was already locked in. Even prior, you're not a fan until they win. You're a fan to watch them win and build it. Watch them build it to win. But I think it's gone too far. Where maybe we need. You're right. Maybe the Yankees need to really scale back on who gets that honor.
Yeah, like I said, I think the only Yankees player I can think of right now, I mean, you could say Judge at this point. Will they retire the number 99? I mean, I don't know, but it probably would be in the conversation to retire his number. It's definitely going to be in the conversation, but I think after some point though, if a player's been let's say they've been dead for what, 60, 70 years, 100 years. I mean, if you unretire that number, are folks going to be really upset? The only number that we know is not going to be unretired is 42, right? Mariano was the last player to ever wear it, and that number is never, ever going to be worn again for historical reasons, but because of Jackie Robinson, right? But I think at some point, you might consider unretiring certain numbers, So, it's like Sunil says, no one else should get 99. I'm in agreement with that, honestly.
And I think he's a lockdown that retired. Yeah.
Yeah. And also Cohen, he says Ward 36, but yet Clark Schmidt is rocking it now. I mean, you could easily make the argument to retire 36, but Cone. I could also make the argument that Cone wasn't a Yankee for all of his career, but he certainly accomplished a lot as a Yankee because he did play for the Mets, right? So I mean, you know, I could make some sort of argument there, but I understand where you're coming though from.
But to unretire a number, it's almost like undoing everything that player did to accomplish to reach that plateau in an
So
organization and a fan base.
once again, another argument.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
but I think it's a fun discussion because everybody's going to have a different angle to it. Like for a while, my thing always was if you're not in the Hall of Fame, you shouldn't have your number retired. Like that's where the organization should reserve that honor. But I'll counter my own argument here.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that 23 shouldn't be retired for Mattingly? So there's no clear cut answer. You can't win an argument when it comes to retired numbers. You can't do it.
Or you should just never
retire a lot
the
of fun
number.
talking about it.
Yeah. Or you should just never even the conversation of retiring numbers should have never even happened anyway. Like we wouldn't even be having this conversation if numbers weren't retired. But Sean says Lou Gehrig 4 is untouchable. I agree.
5, so should 7, so should 3, 2.
I mean, I'm gonna also say 51. My guy Bernie. I mean, I don't I'm biased towards Bernie, so I don't think his number.
See, I would make the same argument for Pettit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We all have our one guy where we're like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do it. But there are players that just reach that plateau. The Yankees are, the Yankees always come up in this conversation. One, because we've had the best organization in baseball's history. I don't want to diminish other fan bases because, like, you get a fan base like the Cardinals, they really love the history of their team.
They do.
The Red Sox love the history of their team. I don't want to denounce any other fan base. But one of the things that Yankee fans always have that plateau that they hang their hat on is the history that we have that have us where we are in our mental state of being a Yankee fan. Where if we don't win the World Series, it doesn't matter if, we go to the 18th inning of a Game 7 of a World Series, and an umpire blows the call. We're going to say the Yankees sucked that year. They didn't win. That's just how we are. We accept it. We know it. They're going to throw trash at us for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the reality of that. That's us. Come at us all you want. We're not going to change. We may agree with we may see your point, but when you're a Yankee fan, there's no other option. It's win it all. Win it all, or you suck.
It's literally sink or swim. Like that's how it is for us fans when it comes to the Yankees. It's sink or swim because it goes back to the Derek Jeter quote: "If we don't win a World Series, it's a failure of a season."
Yep.
So, although I don't know, a lot of fans will agree with that. There's other fans who won't agree with that because some fans will say that getting into the postseason is to them it is a success because they made it to the postseason whereas other teams didn't.
Yep.
Or they made it to the World Series where the other teams didn't. So, but for some fans, it's like it's World Series or bust, and if they don't win a World Series, it's a bust of a season.
And it doesn't even have to be a retired number. Like anytime I see somebody in a 25 jersey, I'm like, God, that's Teixeira. Like we have those players we lock those numbers into.
Yeah.
Right now, every time we see 22, even though we're looking at Ben Rice, we think of Roger Clemens. It's one of those where you have those players you lock those numbers into, and it doesn't matter. Like 12 with Soriano. You have numbers where those players just stick with you because those are the ones you grew up watching.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones you were putting on your, when your parents asked you for Christmas, what you want for Christmas, and you're writing that jersey down. Like that sticks with you. Yes, 26 with El Duque show, a good number. It's you have those players where it's like, I can't believe he's wearing that number, even though it's not retired. We want it retired for certain players because we don't see anybody else in that jersey. And so then you're getting into a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, the whole retiring numbers thing, man, that's always an interesting conversation. You could go.
It's fun but aggravating, and
yeah, you could go a lot of different ways about this. There's so many different avenues, so many different directions that you can take this to. There's arguments for it, arguments against it.
Yep.
It's all subjective. So I mean, everybody's going to have their own opinion on it. But the Yankees are not the only organization to retire numbers. I know we're talking Yankees, but there's other teams that retire numbers too. Got to wonder how those fans feel about it. But
those teams don't have it to the extent that we
don't. Yeah, this is true. They don't have it to the extent.
They're a lot more, like the Red Sox don't have the numbers like us that every time.
True. So I think at this point, with as many numbers the Yankees have retired, I think moving forward they really need to consider whose number they're going to retire moving forward. I mean, they have to be
slow it down.
Yeah, they're going to have to slow it down. As of right now, like I said, I think number 99 is the only number that I would say they should be considering to retire. Although, yeah.
Yeah, I would say 51 for Sabathia because of the Hall of Fame nod, going in as a Yankee.
Mm-hmm.
Because that reaches my criteria for what I personally look for. Where it should be Hall of Famers. And if you go in with the Yankee cap, then your number goes with you. That's kind of the end of the lifeline for that number. 52. Yeah.
52, 52 for Sabathia. I mean, he did go into the Hall of Fame as a Yankee. I mean, he could have gone in as a Guardian. He could have gone in as a Brewer.
So Neil, if he has "That's for You, bitch" on his plaque, I'm gonna freak out. I'll do backflips through the Hall of Fame.
Oh, you doing backflips? I got to see that.
You won't. Look, before we head out for the night, you brought up Robinson with 42. Is it time for baseball to retire Clemente's number?
You did it for Robinson. I think you ought to do it for Clemente. And you brought up
he's the only other player in the.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I remember there was an argument for Ruth for the way he saved the game after the Black Sox scandal. But if it wasn't for Babe Ruth's, legend, the game could have died off. I still would rather make an argument for Clemente.
That I wouldn't complain if they did. Yeah. Like they did for Jackie Robinson. And speaking of Clemente, did you hear about what the Pirates did?
Oh my God, we talked about it on the show one morning.
Yeah,
it was one of those shows you were busy, but it was
the family flipped out too, man. I was like, there's no way. And then the organization saw the backlash. And they were like, okay, well, we made a big mistake. It's like, you think? Because
duh.
Yeah, I was like, what in the hell were you thinking doing that? So, I think that's the only other guy that, if you retired Jackie Robinson's number and no player could ever wear it again, once again, I think you ought to consider that for Clemente, because he was, he was also
he came off as the athlete that really set the precedent as far as the humanitarian efforts, using their status to really bring other people positivity, benefit, and just really paid it forward. I think he was probably one of the OGs in that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the athletic side of it, we know Hollywood's been doing it for years, but Clemente kind of brought it into the sports world, where hey, you're making all and he wasn't even making a ton of money then. He's not making the money like these players are making now.
Oh hell no!
And still put himself last to help other people. You don't he was a very humble person. And to Sean's point, yeah, Gehrig maybe in that conversation for a retired number league wide, but also at the same time, I do kind of I have no issue with baseball if they decide that Jackie is the only one that has a league wide or a MLB wide retired number. I have no issue with him having that honor.
I don't either. I have no issue with it either. But if it's only
there's
him,
no Jackie, there's no Clemente.
Right, 100%. So I mean, if Jackie's the only guy that gets that honor,
that's fine.
So be it. Yeah, I'm not going to complain about it. So
but I think Clemente set the standard of paying it forward.
Yeah.
And just really being a very selfless person. And it's a reminder to all these athletes, you're making all this money. And yeah, I know you have all your foundations, and that's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. But Clemente was doing it before it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, before it became cool, right? But I do believe that some players are doing it for because it's legit. I do feel as though they are passionate about what they're doing. They're not just doing it for like the show and attention.
Yeah.
So I don't want to like accuse any players of doing it because
I always thought a cool name for the organization was with Robinson with the High Sox for Hope. I thought that was a cool name for a foundation.
That was cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a cool name. But yeah, man. But yeah, I mean, if they were, that would be cool though if they did it for Clemente. That would be cool. Just give him the same honor as Jackie Robinson.
Yeah,
because he was another name that was once again a big difference maker for Major League Baseball. And Ken says Babe was heavily.
He was very invested with the orphanages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's where you get into, you praise one person, they're like, well, what about that guy?
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking you, Ken, because it's a valid point.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I think why baseball's leaving it alone. If it was him on his own island, I think it's already done. But yeah, there are so many people that do humanitarian work throughout the world with the money that they're making. But I guess in conclusion, if they had decided that Clemente was the next one that deserved that honor, no problems, no argument. If they came out and says no, it's Jackie's the standard. There's nobody else that's going to be on that level of what he did. I have no argument. I'm good with it. I guess I'll sleep at night. So it's all in the eyes of the beholder of who wants to hold the argument. Because even in with just the two of us, we actually were arguing against ourselves.
Right, exactly.
You get that balance. You're like, well, now that I said it, this makes more sense.
Like I said, with the retired numbers, man, you could go so many different directions.
A million ways.
Yeah, you could go a million different ways. But once again, you're not going to be able to retire every single number known to man, because then are you going to get into the 3-digit numbers, the 4-digit, 5-digit? I'm just saying, it's just ridiculous. What we're going to get it? We're going to get into negative numbers too. I mean, like we're going to have a minus or a positive, plus number.
Yeah,
that would be hilarious. I'd be like, all right.
Like I could just see like -2.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, these jersey sales are going to go down now.
Yep.
But yeah, man.
Listen, I want to thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit tonight. But don't forget why this episode was even started. If you are dealing with any type of mental illness, always reach out for help. Go online. There's a million organizations in every state. There's nationwide organizations. There's friends, family. There's a million options to seek help and not try to take anything out on yourselves. And so take care of yourself because nobody knows you like you. But people are always willing to listen, even if they don't have all the answers. Talk to somebody, get things off your chest. It will pay off dividends like you wouldn't believe, just to be able to talk. So don't forget to do that. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Strike Zone to watch more of NFE. Appreciate you for always being there with us and jumping on with me tonight. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button for us. If you're new to the channel, join the chat. You should hit that like button. Share this out, your friends, your family, strangers on the corner. I am Uncle Tats. I am here with my guest co-host, NFE from the Strike Zone. Where let's pitch out your pride and play hard.
Thanks for having me, man.
You got it.